Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here again into this month session. So this session is quite special because we have a guest who is I will say like he's one of the pioneers in the word video mapping. You know, when the early days of video mapping existed, there was this collective called ANTIVJ. And the guest from today, it was part of this collective. So, so this is why this session I think is kind of special for you guys because it's a great honor to meet one of the personalities who was there from the early days of projecting into buildings and into blocks and into boxes. Roman was one of was living that part of the story there. Yeah, this is how I get to meet him. We met in Mexico in one of the projects that I admire the most in my city in Oaxaca. And today we're going to talk with him. And thank you so much for being here today, as you guys are usual. If you can let us know where you guys are tuning in, please just use the chat and let us know when you're tuning in from. So, as you know, here we're gathering together today into these sessions to inspire students worldwide, creators, to also connect with their inner selves and their in their creative process of like top sharing artists and creators in the immersive experience industry. And every month, as you know, we talk with a colleague from the industry in live in your YouTube and Twitch channels. And thank you so much for your help, contribution. You guys that are here today are making this session possible. And thank you for everyone who is tuning in from France, Cannes, and Quebec, Canada, Colombia, India, and all of these places. Thank you so much for being here today. So, as I told you before, our guest from today's session is I would call him like a pioneer in the projection mapping and video mapping industry. Romain Tardy, he's an accomplished figure in the visual artist scene, and he's actively contributing since 2008, and he has gained international recognition, making this combination with light mapping, physical objects, and sound. And welcome, Roman. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Josue. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you for the very nice introduction.
Well, it's an honor to have you here today. Thank you so much for having the time with us. And let's start. Let's begin this session. I don't know if it would be great if you want to introduce yourself. You want to talk a bit more about your background, and then we're going to go with a few questions from my part, and then we're going to jump into some questions from the audience who is tuning in today. Do you want to share your key presentation or something, or do you want me to share for you?
Well, I can share my one tab. I think I will use my website as a guide in this presentation, like to quickly introduce who I am, what I do, what I've been doing over the past, let's say, 15 years. You mentioned that I started working professionally in this field around 2008. It was actually the first projection mapping experiments I did back then. I should precise also that I was born in Paris. I'm currently based in Europe, in Belgium, in Brussels. I've been working globally for the past 15 years, I would say. And also, as you mentioned it earlier on, I used to be part of this collective called ANTIVJ. I mean, the term pioneer is quite flattering. I don't know if I would call myself a pioneer, because of course, I've been inspired also by some other people, and it's the same. I mean, this kind of artistic process is also kind of a cycle. I tend to think that we mainly like update existing artistic principles with current technologies or current conceptual approaches, which are maybe a bit more contemporary to the world we live in at a given time. So back in 2008, this is what we were experimenting with ANTIVJ, like very simple objects with projection. So I mean, most of you here know what projection mapping is about, so I won't go much in detail about the technical aspect. But pretty soon we expanded our practice to other form of, I would say, like other type of objects, such as scenographies, collaboration with architects. This was for the festival Nuit Sonore in France, for example. So I should precise also that I have a pretty extensive background in VJing. I used to work as a VJ from around 2005 till 2011. I started to work as a VJ when I was a student. I studied fine art school in France and also applied arts in Paris. And actually, VJing is kind of a key element in my professional journey, I would say. Because it was also the first time I would be able to experiment with, my own artistic vision in a professional context when I was a student. So I would spend like most of my time, like during the day, learning things in school, and at night I would either practice VJing in small clubs or even like private parties, or spend time also on forums back then. To learn more about of course, the technical aspects, but also to meet some people online as a first step. But then also to get them to get to know them in real life during events, and eventually also to share some sessions, VJ sessions with them. So it led me to explore like various type of venues, from small festivals to big venues like the Stade de France here. It's I was very lucky actually to be able to work as a VJ in such a wide range of contexts. This is where I met the other people from ANTIVJ actually in this VJ context, and it started a bit as a joke to call ourselves ANTIVJ because at some point we wanted to how could I say that, maybe to expand our practice a bit further than the screen itself. So this is how
many people wearing ANTIVJ?
So initially we were 3 artists, four people, I would say, 3 visual artists with 4 visual artists, sorry, and 1 manager. So with Joanie Lemercier, who's also who's been very active as a solo artist as well since then. Yannick Jacquet, Olivier Razzi. So that was the core team. Thomas Vaquier was doing the sound, and Nicolas Boric was doing the management back then. So we had few opportunities to work, on a larger scale. It led us to develop some video projection mapping project, like this one in South Korea, experimenting with the possibilities of creating the illusion of depth, for example. I think you might be familiar with, and like progressively the relationship also with the context in a more general manner, like how this visual content connects with architecture, but also connects with space in general, and also even the historical aspects of a given space, for example. So all those components started to blend together. It was not like, of course, it's a bit clearer when I talk about it now, but back then we were kind of I don't know how to say it, like juggling, with all these different components and trying to make them fit together, and trying to find meaning also with this like kind of maybe new form of visual exploration. So one of the earliest work maybe I would show now is called Omicron. Nothing to do with the virus. It's a piece we did in Poland in 2012. It's projection mapping in one of the largest concrete dome in Europe that was built very early 20th century. And you can see the video streaming now. It's you can see it online as well. It's well, it's really a special exploration because the building here was very difficult to work with because it's extremely impressive. And one of the main questions here was how to work with such a powerful architecture. Actually, how to where can we find space for our visual creation to exist? So it's been quite a long process. Also because technically speaking, it was not as simple as it is today. Not saying that projection mapping is simple, but back then you didn't really have projection mapping software such as MindMapper with like this very easy and intuitive way to warp visual content onto the building. So the technique we used to use back then was to draw all the architecture directly on a very classic software such as Illustrator in full screen directly onto the architecture. So the blueprint we would have in the computer would match exactly the projection because of course the main challenge here was to have the most precision as possible in the way we would just create the content on the building. So that's
for people. Sorry to interrupt you, but for people who in this group does video mapping, imagine yourself that you have to use Illustrator to map a building and to start drawing and then do the content. Right? This is insane.
Yeah, that was insane, and the whole process was also very slow, because before you could just get to the point where you have like just the blueprint or a decent mapping on the building. I'm not even talking about creating the content here, but just to have like the basic layout to start working with for creating the content. It took us like, I don't know, like few nights and days of adjustments, So also it might be a bit strange to say, but sometimes I also miss this slow process because in a way it was also a very interesting way to get to know the building better also because of course with the tools we have today we save many hours and also in like production wise it makes things way easier. But sometimes I think about this like nights we spent like trying to understand how the building was made and discovering also all those little details because we were just like drawing a line and finally adjusting it and finally just we delete it and we do it again because the technique we used was not right. So it's a different way to build a relationship with the building and the space. And sometimes I try to recreate this slow process with like just different ways because I think this like this space plays also a part in the final creation. So this is something I also tend to value a lot. Is sometimes it's the slowness of the process. It's something I think it's also important, especially when you use like a lot of technology and a lot of tools which are very efficient. So sometimes slower is better also, even if the result can be very dynamic and intense as it was here in this projection mapping. So
it's incredible. When I was mentioning the word pioneer, this is what I meant. Like there was like at the beginning there was just a few people, and I remember there's another name which is Pablo Balbuena that you guys probably know. It's a Spanish guy, and he's also been. I remember that I was back in the day in 2008 or 9. Like he did a project in Mexico as well, and I was just starting as well my career. And I remember he was just using Photoshop just to place their like all these things directly into the building. It was incredible to see for the first time, like, oh, this is how you do video mapping, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also this is I mean, of course you have a learning curve, but I mean, back then we had to find also our own process, because we didn't really have tutorials to watch or to I mean, the only way to learn was to try and to do it. So it also just the whole process was also very like, in a way, very risky, because you didn't really know if what you had in mind would eventually show up on the building, or at least if it would be good enough. So I mean, the whole the whole process, the technical aspect and the artistic aspect were also strongly linked together. And this is something like this kind of artisanal way working with digital tools is something I try to keep even today, using new softwares, because I think there is this I don't know, specific relationship with the tools and the space, which I kind of like. So maybe we can jump to another project. The next projection mapping I would like to share with you is called the Arc. This one is a bit more recent. It's still like 11 years old. It's from 2013. So it was in Oaxaca, in Mexico. This one is has a special place in my heart, in a way, because I mean, the entire process and the entire journey was truly amazing. So I'm not only talking about the final piece and the that I was, of course, very happy to share with the visitors, but also the entire journey from conception to the human journey, also with the people I met in Oaxaca, and the whole team, the whole Mexican team with who I worked from a platform called Poetic. I mean, there were quite many, so I won't name them all, but it's it also really showed me how projects like this is also a collective journey. It's not only about an artist who will say something to the world, but it's really about all the people you meet along the way, and who actually contribute to the final result. Even if you hold the pencil or the software, and you do the creative direction. I think I really learned the importance of the context in a very general way. You know, the human context, the historical context, the physical context. Because this project was taking place in the Botanical Garden in Oaxaca. It was a very special place. A place actually that many people in the city never visited before the festival. So this is also something I was very happy about, that this festival that was taking place in this amazing botanical garden was also the opportunity for the inhabitants of the city to find about this place that was not always accessible. And the fact also that you visited by night adds a layer of magic, which is like difficult to describe also. So if you're in Oaxaca, even if there's no artistic projects in the garden, I mean, just go and have a look at the places.
And one of the things that people probably, I mean, like, don't know about this project is that it wasn't just this installation; it was a night walk, and you could walk through all of this botanical garden. And I remember you guys put some projectors into all this beautiful, garden, and then you were given, like eyes and expressions to the plants, and then you see these little animals hidden into the night, and I was like, whoa, like it was 2000, I don't know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
13, yeah, 13.
So right now we see these type of like experiences, like a Moment Factory. They do these kind of like night walks, and they, augment the nature. But imagine, like seeing this for the first time, augmenting nature, like before these type of projects, they were just projecting into building and boxes. And this is for me like the first time that I saw this connection with nature and light, like I never saw before in my life, and and you guys executed it into just for letting you know, this is one of my favorite experiences that I've been in my life.
Wow. I mean, that's thank you. That's great to hear. And I mean, I must say, it was also the first time I would work with natural elements and also living organisms, because cactus are also living organisms. And also it influenced a lot the storytelling of the piece, because as you mentioned, it was a night walk in the garden. So I should also precise that it was a kind of collective show. The arc is a piece I created, but there were also a few other works from other artists from ANTIVJ in the garden. So people could really, it was really a journey through the garden by night. And also something I really liked is that you could keep also this, I mean, the format of this night show could preserve some form of, I don't know how to say that, but intimacy in a way, because, it was not really packed. Also, the garden had a limited capacity. So it was also interesting to see that even if it's a bit spectacular, it was also, not too much in a way, and this is an aspect of the project that I really liked. I liked the more like a kind of inner energy you can have in this kind of context. It's spectacular, but I would say on a medium level. It's something, I don't know how to describe it, but you can build a true relationship with the artwork in such a context, because you have not too many people around you. You can really focus on the experience, and I think it would have been completely different if it were in a very open garden with thousands of people, for example. So also the context helped a lot to make this project a success, and also, yeah, just the magic of having all this all the cactus, for example. It was the starting point of the storytelling. Like when I saw them for the first time, I really saw like an assembly of not people but beings. So this was this triggered the idea of giving voice and personality to each of all those cactus, basically. So they became characters, and then I built a story around these characters. And the arc is actually a reference to the myth of the great flood, where all the animals gather on the boat to escape the big rain. So this was the first image, the first picture that came to my mind when I visited this garden, and I just left my imagination flow. And I like this moment of the first idea. Of course, then you refine it. You will work on the narrative. But I think the first time you see a place, and the first impression you have of a venue, of all the sensation, including of course the visual sensation, but also the smell, the sensation just under your feet, for example, the texture of the soil, of the ground. All those elements, in a way, were fed into the creation. Because I think this is also something interesting with projection mapping. It's not only about visual projection and sound. To me, it's really about the whole context, as I mentioned it earlier. But the context, I insist on this element, because the context is not only about what you create; it's about what's existing before you come to this space. And you have to take into account in a way or another. Otherwise, you're just a tourist in a space, So this is also something I try to care about as much as I can, by meeting people, by talking about just how do they consider this place, for example. If I can learn a bit more about their vision. And try to find the right balance between what I can bring and what this place brings to me, in a way. So that's also where I realized this balance was important. maybe we could switch to the next video if it works. It's a different project. There's a little gap in time, but so after a few like quite some projects with projection mapping, this one is I don't know if you see my screen here. Maybe before you play this one, I can just quickly go through. Yeah. So just to show quickly that this one is also in Mexico, but in Puebla. I experimented quite a lot with like I would say multi like support or device kind of installation. So a mix of projection mapping of construction, like this structure here is construction with only some lines which are lit with projection, also LED. This one was featuring also a big Ferris wheel, as we can see. This one also, Future Ruin from 2015, is also a more sculptural approach to light. This combines also projection mapping and sculptures, which basically mimic the architecture of the building you can see behind here. So some architectural details are actually recreated here in the structures. So this one was a reflection about the what will be the ruins of our technological era, for example. So I try also to incorporate topics which I feel much connected with. Like I use digital tools. I'm really, I mean, I've been working in this field for a few years now, but I'm still, still asking myself a lot of questions about what does it mean to use all this technology to create art, and what is our place as humans in all this process. This one was also, it was more like back to my VJ kind of roots. It was a scenography that went on tour for like 1.5 years, and it was like powered by some kind of not artificial intelligence, but artificial sensitivity that was supposed to listen to what the DJ or the band was playing and try to not understand, but to feel the emotion conveyed through the music, and it would create some patterns. And you also had some kinetics. Some of the segments were moving as well. So yeah, this brings me to because we're time is flying. So this brings me to this installation called the Great Indecision Council. See that this notion of indecision, or at least questioning this digital thing era, is still part of the topic here. This one is an installation that has been touring for almost 5 years now, even more than 5 years. So it's been touring in like 10, 12 countries, like globally in very different contexts. This is a new approach also because after working with a lot of site-specific projects with projection mapping, I also eventually wanted to be able just to just to tour with one installation, to refine it also and to show it to a wider audience. Because of course projection mapping is great, but it usually happens in one specific place at a specific time. So yeah, this is a new approach, and it uses light LED pixel mapping, but no projection. And to also answer to Bruce, what software do I use today? It's always a combination. It depends on the project. I mean, to create, I still work with like pretty classic software suite, like Adobe. For projection mapping, a lot of like ManMapper, but maybe I will develop this a bit later. So for the Great Indecision Council, like just in a few words, this one basically displays the most frequently Googled request in the country where the installation is shown. So it's real time. It's connected to. You also have a voice which is kind of chanting all those words. So it's a mix of something quite contemplative, and also it talks about how data is basically everywhere, and even at the end of the world, like on this small island, it's everywhere around us. So yeah, maybe you can play the video. Version. This was the very first version of the installation. It's a bit since then, but you get the idea. And also, it's I don't know, maybe it will you will be interested in this aspect also. But the fact that I switched from this like kind of one site-specific project, kind of one-off, to a project that could go on tour. I mean, there are also, like I would say, there's also a change of economic model behind this choice. You know, it's an artistic choice, but it's also that, like business-wise, at some point, working only for one-off became some kind of a limit. And when you invest a lot of time and resources creating a project, it can become a bit frustrating to show it only once. So, you know, it was both for economic and artistic reasons that after a while I started to evolve to this kind of model.
It's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today, Roman. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's start jumping into the questions. And before we jump into more questions, let me just briefly touch about the HQ. So, which is the reason why we're here. So this month we have a 7-day trial for the HQ. So if you want to check out, we'll put the link in the chat right now, so you can take a look. And you know, like for those who doesn't know the HQ, or those who haven't been close to the HQ, it's a school for immersive designers, creative technologies, and touch designer artists and developers. And we have like over 60 full touch designer creative technology video courses. We also have a private group with coaches, and you have like a work or a geek or something, you can ask all these coaches for some of their questions about your work. And we also implement some accelerator sessions where we have some kind of like private coachings with teachers into the platform. And there is like over 120 custom built touch designer tools, project files, templates, and we also have a tech-only certification program for interactive tech and media professionals. Link it's on the chat, and thank you so much. And we're gonna jump into some questions. And before we jump into those questions, I'm gonna start with this round of questions about this question, like how has failure set up your later success? Like, do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. Maybe I will give like two examples, or two. I will tell like two short stories about failures. One was in 2011, I think. Yeah, it was it was back when I was working with ANTIVJ as a collective, and we were doing a project for musician Flying Lotus. In it was like audiovisual project that was premiering at the Roundhouse in London, and actually it didn't happen as planned because we're having this like residency, like pre-show residency, maybe 1 week. And we've been working on a project for months with exchanges with the artists. And the thing is that we wanted it to be as interactive as possible, but the show was already done, but some aspects were not interactive. So we could trigger things by hand, manually, but we didn't want to. And there was this big debate that whether we should fake it or not. And we decided to not fake it. And the thing is that we didn't manage not to fake it. So the thing is the interactive part that we tried to set up, like just even like 1 hour before the show, didn't work as planned. So that was of course, there was a big debate in the team that should we do it or should we not do it. And I just wanted to mention that like every failure is also, I mean, in this case, it's also a collective process. So it was also, of course, it was very disappointing and difficult situation after the show because we were all disappointed and we were that close to do like the show as it should be. And probably the audience will never know about like us doing it manually or not. But we wanted to do the full thing, and we didn't manage. And yeah, that was an interesting situation because, of course, it was difficult to explain to the management, and like a lot of complicated discussion afterwards. But I like the idea that we try to push the experiment as far as possible, even if I think, like, professionally speaking, maybe it was not the best choice, but like from the artist point of view, well.
Yeah, now that you mentioned, this is a problem that happens a lot, like, oh, but it's real time. And sometimes people will be like, but who cares? Like, I mean, probably just you, and that's fine, but you're doing something from, for an audience. And audience is more important than if only you know that it's real time. Like, you can render it and you can let them know, like, yeah, it's real time. I mean, as long as like your storytelling and whatever you want to express and the emotion you want to drive are driven into that thing that you're gonna do. It's good. It's fine. Like that's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah. This is what happens when you focus too much on the technical aspect and not on the audience and on the results. So that was a good way to, maybe not a good way, but that was a way to learn it the hard way. But yeah, so that's a behind the scenes story.
I will also add that this is one of the main problems that happened with the current use of hyper use of technology, because we can use lasers, and then we can use smoke, and then we can use all of these tools, and like you don't give them purpose, and sometimes you end up using everything just because you can, and you're not telling anything. But anyways, so next questions: what is your process with your of working with large scale artwork?
Well, I think I explained it a bit already in the with the ARC installation, but like it mainly starts with with the site, with the venue, and with the all the context I was talking about. So it's to me, it's very important that the space is the starting point. I don't really think in terms of visuals first. I tend to think in terms of spatial approach and contextual approach. So I try to be as open as possible to all the signals I will just receive in a given place, including talking with people and discovering about this place. And so I try to, I would say, to consider the emotional layer first, and then comes the more intellectual or conceptual layer. I try to make things in this order.
Great, thank you. And what's next for you?
Well, it's still a long journey. I mean, there are a lot of things I haven't explored yet. What I actually decided recently is to be more radical in my artistic approach. I mean, to probably have less compromise between the commercial projects and the artistic projects. That would be a long discussion, but I also that's why I started a production company that will handle more the commissions and also the more like the institutional work. I mean, you can. I don't know if I'm still screen sharing mode now, but it's basically. I mean, I'm sharing it here, but there's my name is not there. You know, it's called LDA Productions. And for example, it's a project which is still ongoing, so it's still keeping me busy. For example, but in Europe here we have the presidency of the European Council, which is currently Belgium, where I live, and so I got this commission for the biggest European institution, basically. So it's basically kinetic lights. I mean, you might have seen this kind of system already. So it's like two waves, like in between people, in between which people can walk, and they also program with a specific algorithm. You know, this kind of I would say split between the the more maybe commercial project or commission and my more experimental work is something I'd like to pursue in the future. Yeah, you can see if you're curious about some more commercial projects I've done here. Some of the projects on my website are still also visible on this one.
I think the next question is very kind of related to, because it has to do with a bit more with economics about your work. So how do you initiate a transitional project like that? You know, do you organize and arrange all of the equipment, transportation, and found everything yourself? Does a media studio come to you and ask you for something?
Well, it depends. Actually, it's I think working on a transnational level was also a choice in the beginning. Also because the market in France, before living in Belgium, I used to live in France. France is better from this perspective, but in Belgium, it's a very small market, for example. So in a way, you don't really have the choice. You have to work abroad because the market here is not big enough. So I work a lot with art festivals, digital art festivals, or visual arts music festivals, which I mean, luckily in Europe we have like many. So basically, what happens is that either I contact them or it depends on the period. Actually, sometimes I receive more requests and I ask people to if they're interested in my work. But I also, I mean, networking is important to go to see what's going on, even as just a part of the audience. It's something very important, I think, not only for a professional reason, but also just to get inspired by other people, and also to keep your mind as open as possible. And not only in the digital art or media art field, but in contemporary art or like dance theater. I think it's probably the most inspiration I have from the other work I see is not necessarily coming from the media art scene, but also from things I don't know about, and then maybe I have a bit more of a fresh vision or reception of those works. I'm just back from the Biennale in Venice, for example, that just opened last weekend, and it's just amazing to see what's going on. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you. So this next question is also related. I think many of people are here interested into, how is this, art making works. For example, like this is the question about the great Indecision console installation that you just shared to us.
Yeah.
How does touring with an installation like this work? Like how big is the team, and is it always the same team touring or personal on location?
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends on the project. For projects like the ARC or the projection mapping projects, it's usually it's always a big collaboration. I mean, everything I showed today is collaborative. So it's usually a collaboration between local production and this work. Oh, I just got an error message. And my team, but my team is relatively small. I mean, we try to usually it's a team of 3 or 4 people maximum that travel abroad, and we try to manufacture like the things locally when possible. But when I tour with this Great Indecision Council installation, for example, it's no, it's quite a small team actually. It's 2 or 3 people, and then I have technicians on site that I will train. But I conceived also the installation like on the technical level, so it's easy to explain for the local stagehands, for example, or for the sometimes volunteers who are not always very skilled technically. So it's a balance you have to find, because also in this economy, especially when you work with art festivals, the budgets are not that huge. So it's a big deal for them if you need to fly like a fourth member of the team or more. So it's from the very beginning of the conception of the work, you have to take this into account also, and this is part also of the success or the failure in the of your work. Also, the logistics have to be as easy as possible.
Yeah, then the next question is also a site-specific questions about how do you scout a place for design considerations? Like, do you do 360 photos, LiDAR scans, a PDF with dimensions?
Well, 360 photos definitely, like video recordings, and also like more traditional, just measurements and plans. Once again, here a collaboration is key. Usually working with, or asking the team, the local production team, if they're in touch with local architects or even archives from the city, because sometimes when you work with very old buildings or the garden, for example, there are plans in the archives of the city, for example. So this can be very helpful. As I mentioned earlier, I like also the more traditional or the more artisanal way of working. But of course, when I have access to a LiDAR scan, for example, I will be happy to use it. Also, it depends on if the venue has been used in the past for the same purpose. And in this case, usually you have some documentation available. So yeah, it depends.
I'm also, now that you mentioned, I'm going to put in the chat a link to an iPhone app that I just discovered that is incredible. There's a lot of like 3D scan app, but this one, in specific, does a really good job into reconstructing the space and taking the measurements. So I just put a link there from this app if you guys want to check it out. It's a LiDAR scan app.
Sorry, I might just add a little detail. A 3D printing and laser cutting some like small scale model of the building or the element you want to project onto is also very helpful. To keep working in the physical world, not only in the computer, even if you're in the studio, I think it's an important part of the process.
Yeah, actually, myself, I do have a 3D model of a space here. So it's always, the way to do it, I think, is the more kind of like, you're never going to beat the physical thing compared to the digital. I think this is part of the process, to rebuild a bit more of a model of what you're doing. So another question here is, in your recommendation, what kind of work should I do get started to meet people to work do some of this creative work? I'm currently working on architecture degree in a small town.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, actually. Every situation is different, of course. But to find information about just the events in your area is, I think, it's the first thing. Even like it depends on if you're still a student student, it's interesting also to connect with art school in your area. This is something that was very important for me also in my early years, to connect with people from other school who had just complementary skills. For example, I don't know much in architecture, So working with people who know how to draw a plan, for example, and also just in terms of just learning from others, skills exchange. It's a good thing. Well, I think online, of course, is where like most of the things will happen, where you can easily learn some knowledge. But I would say like just book tickets in every like good festival or even like conference event. You know, it's not only about going to see the actual artwork, but also to attend this kind of event where professional will do a keynote, for example, and usually you also have some more informal sessions, or just around the bar where you can ask questions, and sometimes you can also start collaboration. It happened to me.
Speaking of festivals, there is OFMX happening in Mexico soon, so that is a call related to this kind of stuff. So next question here is let me take a look into this. Hi Ben Garrett, he's part of the HQ as well. How do you balance the business part with your creative side of your work? Are you still able to spend as much time being creative?
That's one of the, to be honest, that's one of the main challenges I'm facing now. I mean, it's probably, talking about this topic with friends and colleagues, I can tell it's something that many people, like at least at this stage of their career, it's a question like a lot of people are facing. I mentioned it earlier on, saying that I want to spend more time and also be more radical when it comes to create art pieces. And I tend to, I tried like different ways of working. Like I used to not make too much difference between commissions and my own artistic practice, for example. And sometimes both can blend pretty nicely together. But I would say most of the time, you find some limitations in what you want to explore in terms of topics, in terms of visual approach, because, and I totally understand it also from the business side. People who commission work want to be sure that what you will deliver correspond to what you do best in a way. So when you experiment new things, you cannot always offer the guarantee that it will be as professional, as good, at least according to their criteria, than the previous work you did in the past. So I understand their point of view, but I think it's somehow limiting as an artist as well. So now I tend to, that's why I started also this company called LDA that will handle commission in which like experimentation is not really possible, to basically to have more time and opportunities and freedom as well as an artist.
And finally, because we don't want to take much time from your work, what advice would you give to driven young professionals about to enter into your industry?
Well, I think I partly answered this question already, but I would say like to get close to people who inspire you in general in your field, but it could be outside of your field as well. Like be as open-minded as possible, because opportunities can come from basically everywhere. I'm still wondering how I got some projects. Sometimes you never really know the path the projects are taking in a way. And I think it's important to see people's work in real life, not only on internet, especially when it comes to like immersive works or works that are based on sensations, physical sensations. This is something documentation or like video reports cannot transmit, or they can transmit like 10%, 5% of it. So I would say like, yeah, good to see things in real life as much as possible. Work collectively also. I think working collectively is important, even if you work as a creative director, or it's never as vertical as it seems, even if people work in their own names. It's they're always a collective process behind an artist's work. I take the example of the movie industry, for example. You have movie director, but we know that he wouldn't be able to do anything without a great professional team. So yeah, work collectively, and just curious in general.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Romain, for your time and for your wisdom for today's sessions. And thank you everyone who joins these sessions every month. We're super happy that you guys are here, and a lot of insights there, and a lot of things that are really interesting to us. And see you next month with next session. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy. See you soon.